Long ago, in a time when nights were darker and the world less understood, humans in the Middle Ages walked through shadowed streets, surrounded by stone walls, flickering torches, and whispers of superstition. The human mind was a place of mystery, feared, and often misunderstood. Every unusual thought, behavior, or emotion was met with suspicion, fear, and sometimes punishment. There was no science to explain depression, anxiety, or other mental disorders. Instead, explanations were drawn from beliefs, myths, and religious teachings. People believed that mental illness was a sign of demonic possession, divine punishment, a mysterious curse, or the result of an imbalance of the four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. A mind out of balance was seen as dangerous, unstable, and unpredictable. Because of this limited understanding, treatments were harsh. Bloodletting was common, thought to remove bad humors from the body. Herbs and simple remedies were administered in hope of calming the mind. Prayers, religious rituals, and exorcisms were applied to drive out evil spirits. Isolation and confinement were often considered the only ways to control madness. Yet these treatments rarely healed. They often worsened suffering, deepening fear and loneliness. Still, even in these difficult times, the first seeds of empathy and care began to take root in the quiet observation of healers and monks who listened, watched, and tried to understand. Society did not see people with mental illness as patients. They were dangers, anomalies, or objects of ridicule. Some were imprisoned in cold, dark cells, hidden from the eyes of the public. Others were displayed for amusement, their suffering turned into spectacle. Many were abandoned entirely, left to wander streets alone, with no protection or care. A small number were cared for in monasteries or early hospitals, where monks and healers offered warmth, food, and attention. These acts, though simple, carried the first lessons in patience, understanding, and compassion. Even tiny gestures of care began to shape the understanding that mental health required empathy, not punishment. As centuries passed, humans slowly learned that the mind, like the body, needs care. Scholars began documenting patterns of behavior. Monks and healers wrote down observations, learning that each mind is unique and that listening and attention are crucial. Patience and observation became tools of healing. The human race began to recognize that mental illness is not a mark of sin or weakness, but a part of life that requires compassion and support. Imagine a young person in a medieval village, shunned for unusual thoughts, wandering foggy streets. Once they might have been mocked, imprisoned, or abandoned. Yet occasionally, a neighbor offered a quiet hand, a warm meal, or a kind word. These simple acts became the first bridges of hope. They show us that compassion has always been the beginning of healing, long before science could explain the mind. Small gestures, unnoticed by history, laid the foundations of understanding. Slowly, society began to accept that care, patience, and empathy could transform lives. The road was long, but the human spirit endured. Over the centuries, understanding grew, observation became records, records became studies, and studies became the foundation for modern mental health care. People began seeing mental illness as part of human life, not divine punishment. The lessons of patience and care were passed down, guiding generations. Every patient interaction, every act of listening, every small gesture of care carried wisdom forward. History reminds us that empathy and understanding are as essential as medicine. Let us pause and reflect. Countless lives were shaped by fear, misunderstanding, and neglect, yet countless others were transformed by compassion and care. The journey from the dark halls of the past to the enlightened approaches of today is long and filled with lessons. Every kind act, listening, comforting, offering support, is part of a chain stretching through centuries. We honor the struggles of those who came before by carrying these lessons forward. Healing the mind is both art and science. Knowledge alone cannot heal. Understanding and compassion must accompany it. The greatest discoveries are not only in medicine or research, but in the quiet power of empathy. Through empathy, the mind finds comfort. Through patience, the heart finds courage. And through care, the soul finds hope.